Stevie Wonder, remember Stevie Wonder? He was great. I used to love him when I was in high school. Now we have another beautiful gray Monday. Looking forward to another day behind the wheel, having to deal with the substandard TriMet equipment in the rain. You know, I was doing a little research today about safety and conditions that erode safety, and lo and behold, two of the major things, of course, we already knew that brakes and stuff. Look, so this guy, inadequate rest time between shifts. We already knew that this was goddamn problems at the intersection here. We already knew that inadequate brake time was a serious problem for operators, and we have many shifts here at TriMet that are wholly inadequate for an operator brake time. And we also knew that inadequate amount of sleep. Now we know for a fact that there are many operators that do what's called the double back. I thought my personal, after reading all of that, the operating conditions, the time of service, split shifts, of course, are well known, bad for safety. Split shifts are just bad for safety. You know, they increase fatigue. So we have poor equipment, long work shifts for the full times, lots of huge amount of splits for the part-time, and a fair amount of those for full-time too. You know, people that want hours generally go ahead and take split shifts if it pays the proper amount of hours. Jeez. Don't tell me I'm going to have to wait 2 lights here. This guy's got plenty of room to go, but he won't go. Jesus. And that guy's running across the street on it. I don't know. It's just very unsafe around here, that's for sure. So it's monumental to me that there's been so much focus on safety of the operator and zero focus on management's structure. Zero. And I'll say it again, I've said it right along, that the reason for that, of course, is because the reason they're putting so much focus on us is to keep it away from them. You see, that's the whole intent, is to focus on us so that everybody's looking at us. And the MaxFax blog, if you haven't seen that blog, you need to go over there. Just MaxFax on your search engine, FAQS. Did a great post about why doesn't the TriMet, God, I can't see. Why doesn't the TriMet management release good stories about operators? Now, specifically, if you look inside of our paychecks, we've been getting all these nice little stories about how great we are. But those nice little stories are never actually released to the press. It's never a press release. It's never any. You don't see it on the TriNet. You see the stories of this operator or that, or this capital projects person or that administrator. You'll see your everyday hero story, I guess they call it. Or I forgot there's a page on the TriNet website that profiles various people who are supposedly exceptionally doing their job, but it's not really ever issued to news media. And the MaxFax blog talks about why don't they ever have press releases detailing the wonderful operators and all the good things we do. Why is that never in the press? Well, the board will tell you because we don't tell the press what to cover. Well, if you don't even put the story out there, the press will definitely not cover it. So there's definitely a concerted effort to not let us look good in the media, and I think it's intentional. I think it's intentional, and everybody that's worked here for some period of time has verified that these stories, these bad stories about operators, always increase during these contract disputes, and ever since. And notice how all of these stories have come back into the forefront since the unfair labor practice has been lost by the management. So they look bad. Of course, that wasn't brought up at the board meeting. They conveniently forgot to talk about that, as well as the boring withdrawal is not scheduled for public discussion at the board meeting, but is scheduled for public discussion at the so-called TriMet retreat meeting, where they go off into, I don't know, they go off into Forest Park or something and discuss things kind of away from the public. I don't think those are actually closed to the public, or are they? I don't know. Jason will know that. But they keep any kind of controversial stuff out of the board meeting. They don't want to discuss it. You know, the board meetings are all, just like everything else here, it's all show. It's a showtime. You know, and Rick Van Breveren himself said to me that when I was at the board meeting, he said, yeah, most of the real work of the board is done on the telephone or behind closed doors. It's not done in public, which is, of course, no surprise. You know, does that surprise you? It doesn't surprise me at all, of course. I mean, that's par for the course, right? That's how government doesn't function for the benefit of the citizens. It functions for its own benefit. That's, you know, government functions for the people that are running it now. It's completely gone into this area of corporatization of government, insofar as government solely runs for the sake of the people that are running the government. They're first. Citizens are just basically there, and they have to pretend that they're actually dealing with them, but the actual government structure runs for itself. It runs to keep itself in business. TriMet's a very excellent example of that, you know, because they plead poverty on the one hand, and then if you watch their hiring, you'll see all kinds of things being hired. Constant hiring of various superfluous types of positions. It's constant too. You know, piling on the unfunded liability and using funds that are coming from the payroll taxes. So it's really hype. You know, the whole idea that we don't have any money is hype. They have plenty of money to do what they want with it, and that's not to provide services and not to provide us with any kind of a decent health care. Well, you know, the days of actually having good health care are pretty much gone. You know, the race to the bottom is in full swing, and rather than looking at the real blame, which is the health insurers, they look at the employees as being the problem, and the public has eaten it up. You know, lock, stock, and barrel. So it's a damn shame that the public can't see through that particular fraud. But it's understandable that people that don't have decent insurance would resent those that do. I mean, especially since it's tax-based insurance. It's not like you're getting it from your employer. But I mean, there are employers, even in places like Burgerville, provide excellent insurance to their employees. You know, TriMet has this false idea being circulated that we're getting such beautiful health care, and it's just more propaganda. But the public doesn't really understand that. There's no discernment between the lies and the reality. Now, on to the next subject we want to talk about here before we get down to Beaverton, is my step 2 hearing, my step 3 hearing. I've already been through one. I've been through the initial conversation with station manager. Of course, that goes nowhere. I don't know why they bother having these meetings with operators when they've already decided what they're going to do. And of course, they won't allow any recordings in the meetings. Even if I offer to have them keep the recording, they won't take it. Now, right there, you know immediately that there's no credibility in the system when they're so adamant about, no, you cannot record this meeting. Even if I give you control of the file, they will not allow it. In other words, don't quote us. In other words, we don't want to be on the record. You know, we don't know, we're not confident of what we're doing here, so you cannot quote us in a way that we can bring this conversation up again. So that's important to understand, because for you to have real belief in the system, you should be able to have some way to reference past conversations. And in my step 3, well, I wasn't going to go, but Jeff Ackerson has convinced me to go in the interest of, you know, I was sat down on Saturday and I started actually making another case. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I spending all this time on this? I mean, it's an exercise in futility. You can't make truth tellers out of liars, okay? To assume that the management is going to all of a sudden be honest that's not going to happen. You know, these are management cronies. These are all cronies, and that's the perfect word for them. They're cronies. They're not going to take stands against each other. I'm sure they've all discussed this. They know what's going on. They're not going to change their tune. And it's interesting that this is coming up right now after the high-profile dispatch call, which I did not release, but as further evidence of the stupidity of their entire regulation. That didn't get released to the press because I didn't want it to get released to the press. I didn't think it was my role to release that identity. That was a management role, not mine. I don't need a regulation to tell me that, okay? And because I could have just had one of my associates release it to the press had I wanted to, and I specifically told the people that had access to that file not to release it to the press. But the rule doesn't govern other people, it governs me. So their rule against me, it's all about a dispatch recording that I put. This is what I was penalized for. It's not enforceable. So why did they waste my time? Why did they waste my time with this at all is what I want to know, because it's not really enforceable. And I released a transcript of it, and it got huge circulation. That transcript, which they did not say I couldn't release transcripts, and I did. It was perfectly legitimate, and got thousands. You know, the dispatch call in question that I'm being penalized for had 40 views, I think, when I took it down. 40. Okay, huge amount of circulation there. It's just like nobody. And most of these people are not TriMet employees. Maybe, who knows how many. Very few TriMet employees actually are on the internet. I mean, bus drivers. Very few of these people that drive buses are on computers. It's a very big minority of us, and those that are basically on that Facebook thing, which I can't stand, by the way. I hate that Facebook, but I post news stories to it. But I don't post most of my blog stuff stays on the blog. I don't post it to that Facebook, because the thing about the blog, you have to be my friend. The Facebook, you got to be my friend. The blog, anybody can access it at any time, and if people are interested enough, they will access. If they're not interested, they won't. And I prefer that. I don't need a bunch of people that are not even interested in the topic to be looking at my stuff. So the rule is really a stupid ass rule in the first place. And in the second place, the original letter that was intended for me was intended. See this camera I'm holding? That's what the letter about my use of audio and video devices was aimed at. It's a complete lie, and they know it's a lie, to say that I was told that I couldn't use public domain material. It's a complete fabrication, and they know it, and I'm going to prove it to them too. And you know, they made that up. I'm not sure why they all of a sudden decided that we were going to penalize him for doing what he's been doing all along, but I guess they wanted to show me their power, which I was already aware of. But in this case, they made fools of themselves as far as I'm concerned. And I've lost a tremendous amount of respect. I used to have respect for my management. Even though sometimes I disagree with them, I used to have respect for them.